You know, we're very good in this country about resisting a foreign threat. You know, if invaders were coming to our shores to threaten our freedom, we would grab our guns, we'd volunteer for the military, we would do whatever we needed to do. But when the threat is this subtle, little gray men in back rooms rewriting rules, it's a little harder to get people focused on it. And it's a little more subtle. And that's exactly what they're counting on. You know, and it's not just the regulations. We could talk about the statutes like Obamacare. We could talk about the court cases. But it's a pattern of erosion. You know, and one issue that is in a lot of people's minds now that wasn't a few years ago is state sovereignty. And I think it's because of this idea the federal government's so out of control. How do we build a bulwark? How do we build a wall to slow it down? And I'm a big believer in that. I'm a big believer that the federal government, you know, this is high school civics, but no one in Washington seems to know it. The federal government is a government of limited jurisdiction, right? The state government is a government of general jurisdiction, which means the federal government can only do what's enumerated, has a very narrow range of activities. Well, of course, that's what we say. I assume we still teach our kids that in school. But nobody in Washington knows that because the federal government has leaped its bounds. It's jumped the boundaries like a river, and now it's everywhere. I believe in state sovereignty. I believe we need to restore the states to where they belong. I wrote an article on this about a week ago. I'd be happy to talk to you more about it in questions, but we need an actual plan to get there. And part of that plan is differentiating between unfunded mandates, where the federal government says, do this because I tell you to do it, and partially funded mandates, where they give you a check, and in exchange you trade your freedoms. I say to everyone, every time the federal government is reaching out, handing you a check with one hand, it's got a pair of handcuffs in the other. How cheaply will you sell your freedom? So we have to have a plan to resist both kinds, to say no to the federal government and to move ourselves toward independence in Missouri. But we've been on the other path in Missouri for a long time. We've been gradually just growing more dependent on the federal government and following its bad model of too much regulation. When you're talking about state sovereignty, as I said earlier, you've got two types of federal impositions of the state. You've got unfunded mandates where they say, just do this because I tell you to. I'm going to take the position as governor, those are unconstitutional. Any of your commands for us to do something that's within the traditional province of the state, we're just not going to do it because you don't have any power. And if they want to litigate it, we'll litigate it till the cows come home. I'm very comfortable with litigation. That's what I did for you. It doesn't scare me. You used to talk about the money. This is the really nasty use of federal power, I think. And it's funded or partially funded mandates where they give you a check and they attach a bunch of strings.
Okay, let's talk about unfunded mandates. Let's talk about the Department of Education and the unfunded mandates that have totally ruined education in Missouri. They've accepted funding after funding after funding outside the purview of the legislature to implement Common Core standards, all kinds of testing regulations. I mean, I could just list along. You know what they are. So what are you going to do about the Department of Education and the ability for them to usurp the legislature in this state?
The state constitution says you have to spend at least 25% of the state income on education.
And how do you feel about that?
I think having a hard number is a bad idea, although I'm as big a proponent of education as you can. I think legislating the Constitution is a bad idea. Let me tell you what I will do with education. First of all, we'll talk about the federal aspect. Education is one of the areas in the state where we're going to say to the federal government, no thank you to their money. And we're going to stop taking their money because it doesn't amount to that much. And therefore, we're going to then take the position in Missouri, you've got nothing to say about how we educate our children. Because the only lever they have over us is the money. It doesn't add up to very much, but it's ruining our education. So in that, and I'll explain, I mean, if I don't get back to it and you want to hear about it, I'll tell you we'll do this with the Environmental Protection Agency too. But we're going to say no to the money. Then we're going to take the position you've got nothing to say about how we educate our children. Then what we're going to do, and this is going to require a constitutional amendment, almost certainly. In Missouri, we're going to go to a voucher system. Because here's what we're doing in Missouri now. We're spending an average of $9,500 per student per year to educate kids in Missouri, except in St. Louis and Kansas City, where we're spending $16,000 per student per year to well, I started to say to educate those students,
They can't
to
read.
do whatever we're
Send
doing
them to
in
school.
those schools.
Yeah.
So clearly money's not the issue. I tell you what the issue is with education, monopolies don't work. If we still had a telephone monopoly, we wouldn't have cell phones, we'd still be using rotary dial phones. And that would be fine with me, but the market's spoken. And it's not fine with most of us. Monopolies don't innovate. Let's say you're a poor mother in downtown St. Louis, and you've got 3 kids. Right now, if you call the principal, you got a complaint, you want things to be different, he doesn't care what you have to say, because you're a prisoner. But let's say you got 3 $10,000 vouchers in your pocket, and you and those vouchers can walk if you choose. Well, he's going to take your call, and he's going to pay attention. It's simply empowering consumers. I made this joke earlier today. You know, if the hippies hadn't ruined this slogan in the 60s, I think the slogan of my campaign would be power to the people. But I just can't do it with a straight face and everybody laughs. But, and my wife, hippies really annoy her. So. But really that's what my campaign's about. Moving power from the federal government to the state government, from the state government to the local government to the people, on down to individual taxpayers. Right now, if your decisions are being made for your kids' education in Washington, D.C., you got nothing to say about it. But if we flip that, and the decisions are being made by you, we change the whole dynamic. And I hate Common Core because I don't believe quality education means the exact same education for everybody. Let teachers teach. You know, humans have been teaching other humans at least for about 5,000 years we know of. It's not magic, but we just need to let teachers teach. So that's what I want to do with that.